it's my Towle and welcome to my channel. I am back today to talk about all of the books I've read this month. And so for the month of September, I did end up reading a total of 11 books. And a majority of them were on audio, right? So if you know, there was this Audible sale going on for like 1 week in September. So I definitely took advantage of it, and each one of these books only cost like $3 to $5. I was so excited because a lot of these books were like highly anticipated reads for me, right? And so I definitely took advantage of the sale and grabbed it for a really good price. So with that said, let's get on to all of the books I read this month. The first book I read this month is called Ruined by Samantha Towle. And in this book, our main characters are Zeus and Cameron. At the beginning of this book, we find out that they were very much in love, right? And I believe they met each other in high school and things just went from there. After being together for a few years, something had happened, right? And so Zeus did confess to Cameron that he had cheated on her, right? And Cameron was just over it and she did not take his bullshit. 5 years after the breakup is present day, okay? And so we find out that Zeus is at the peak of his career and he is this boxing champion that is very popular. One night, Zeus goes to this club, right? And he finds out that one of the go-go dancers at this club is actually Cameron. And so this is how they kind of reunite with each other, and he is not really happy with what she's doing. Out of nowhere, Zeus shows up at Cameron's door, right? And so he was somehow able to track her down. And he finds out that Cameron actually has a daughter that's about 4 years old or so, right? So obviously we know that this is his daughter, right? And he apparently never knew that she existed all of this time. And then we follow the relationship from there. So Cameron obviously doesn't just take him back. He has to do a lot of groveling. There was a lot of tension in this book, and I really enjoyed it. I feel like the payoff was really well done. I did end up rating this one 4 stars. The next book I decided to pick up is called They the Pretty Stars by Eden O'Neill. And this is the first book to one of her series, right? And so I actually found out about this author on TikTok and I was intrigued by her other books. But I'm going to be completely honest and say right off the bat that this book didn't really do it for me, okay? So this book follows our main character, December, and she just recently moved to this new town and is living with her father. So I guess what happened was that when her parents divorced, her older sister went to live with their father and she actually stayed behind to live with her aunt instead. And so she decides to start anew and live with her father, right? And she obviously is starting at this new school as well. December was very close with her sister, right? And so she is trying to find out where her sister is and why she stopped picking up her calls and her texts. On the first day of school, she is introduced to a lot of characters, right? And apparently there is this like elite group of boys at this school who are very rich. I'm sorry, I'm trying to explain this without cringing, but the main hero in this book is called Royal Prince, and he's obviously part of this group. December finds out that this guy was actually a very good friend of her sister's, right? And so that's why she's kind of intrigued by him. Obviously, we have a romance between them, and then the whole mystery aspect of her sister going missing, right? So this book does end up on a cliffhanger, and it wasn't horrible, okay? I gotta say that. But I just thought it was a little amateurly written, if that makes any sense. But I do know that she wrote a lot of other books, and I do want to give those a try as well. Anyways, this book I did end up rating 2 stars. The next book I finished is called Ricochet, and that is the second book to the Addicted series, right? So I did make a reading vlog on this book, and so I will not be talking too much about it, and I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't read the first book, right? But this is the continuation of Lily and Lo's story, and I absolutely loved the book. It wasn't 5-star material. I feel like it was a filler book, but I actually really enjoyed it, and so I think I rated this one either 3 or 4 stars. Definitely do check out my reading vlog if you haven't already. The next book I finished is called A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. So this is the third book of the ACOTAR series, and it's just a continuation of the first 2 books, right? And so I actually really enjoyed this one. I was confused a lot of the times, no surprise, but it was very interesting. I want to say there was a lot going on. I would say this book focused a lot on our main characters' sisters, right? So we have Nesta and Elaine in this book that we talked about a lot, and so definitely there were a lot of other characters introduced. There's this whole war plot going on and everything leading up to the war. There's this YouTuber who does a very good job at summarizing these books, right? So after each one of them, I do go and listen to her videos. I ended up rating this book 4 stars. Alright, I had to move because the sun was coming up. And so anyways, the next book I read was called Faked by Karla Sorensen, and this is the second book of the Ward Sisters series. I did read the first book and I didn't exactly love it, right? I rated that one 2 stars. And so I'm going to say the same thing for this book. It was 2 stars for me as well. In this second book, we are following Claire, right? And from the first book, we find out that she is one of the twins from the Ward sisters. And so it is Claire and Talia. Claire is the quiet sister, and she's just kind of kept to herself. She's more introverted, right? And we know that Claire has a crush on this boy called Finn. And Finn happens to be Leah's best friend. They don't have like anything romantic or anything like that going on between them. They are just like platonic friends. There's this event that is going on in a couple of days, right? And Finn's parents want him to bring Leah to this event. Leah has this other thing going on that she can't miss, right? So she asks Claire to go with Finn to this event and pretend to be her. Claire is just like, he is your best friend. He's obviously gonna find out that I am not you. However, she does agree to go because she wants to make something happen between her and Finn. However, on the day of the event, the person who picks up Claire is not Finn, and it is instead his older brother, Bauer. So if you know anything about Bauer at all, he is apparently this troublemaker, right? And he doesn't get along with his parents, specifically his stepmom. As Claire and Bauer attend this event together, things happen, right? And they end up having to fake date. I won't get into the details or anything, but that's pretty much the premise of the story. And so we're following the romance between Claire and Bauer. I can see why someone would rate these books higher stars, right? But for me personally, I feel like it was really bland. There wasn't much going on that really interests me, and the chemistry between the characters just didn't really pay off at the end. And so I ended up rating this one 2 stars as well. The next book I read was Paint It All Red by St. Abby, and this is the last and final book of the Mindfuck series. And I can't figure out how else to describe these books other than that they are perfection, okay? So I do recommend them to all of the people that I see wanting dark romances, and most people do read them or they have read them already. It was so hard to put it away. It was so hard to read the final chapter of this story. I also noticed that I haven't seen a single negative comment about this series at all, right? So that just shows how good it is. My only regret about this series is finding out about it too soon, right? It's like I can never go back and read it for the first time again. Infinity stars for this series, no questions asked. Alright, so moving on to the next book, I picked up Blindside by Kandi Steiner, and this book is very similar to The Deal from the Off-Campus series. In this book, we're following Clay and Gianna. So Clay had actually just recently got dumped by his ex-girlfriend, right? And so he's obviously very heartbroken over this. He is the star football player, right? And because of his breakup, he's been really down. He's not performing at his best. Gianna comes in when she notices that he is acting off, right? And Gianna is actually the PR coordinator of their football team. So she decides to meet up with Clay to kind of discuss what their plans are. As they're both meeting up at the restaurant, Clay notices that Gianna is very infatuated with the musician there, right? And so he's just like, you know what? Maybe we should fake date. If we pretend to be in a fake relationship, you can help me make my ex jealous, and I will help make this musician notice you. So we know that Gianna is very inexperienced, right? So she doesn't know nothing about romance. She doesn't know anything about intimacy, right? And so she's just like, if this is my chance to make a move, it is now. Obviously, people start catching feelings, people start becoming possessive over each other, and so we follow the relationship from there. I ended up rating this book 3 stars, right? And there was nothing wrong with it per se, but I feel like it was so similar to the deal that I've read before that it wasn't anything new, I guess. A lot of people do recommend it and love it, right? And some have said that it's better than the deal, but for me personally, I do like the deal better. Alright, I just have a few more books left. The next book I read is called The Words by Ashley Jade, and this follows our hero Phoenix and our heroine Lennon. So the relationship first starts when Lennon is asked to tutor Phoenix, right? And I guess he's failing one of his classes. After getting to know each other, they find out that they have one thing in common, and that is their love for music. Lennon had always had an interest in becoming a songwriter, right? And Phoenix is very passionate about singing. So through this interest, they both actually bond together and eventually become something more than friends. Things don't go smoothly for these two though, right? Because Phoenix does something very unforgivable to Lennon. Eventually, they do part ways, and Lennon pretty much cuts him out of her life, right, for what he did to her. Several years later, Phoenix is now part of this rock star band, and I believe it was like called Sharp Objects or something, and he is actually in this kind of headspace where he is not doing so well. He's getting himself into a lot of trouble, right, and he's been involved in like drugs, alcohol, and he's making these poor decisions pretty much. And so his manager kind of has to hire this person that will not ever sleep with him, okay? So I guess all of the people that he hires to babysit Phoenix pretty much ends up either sleeping with him if they are a woman, or they actually try to become good friends with him if they are a man, and so they kind of enable him to do certain things. One of Phoenix's friend, who is also his bandmate, suggests that they hire Lennon for this position, right? Because they know that she hates Phoenix and she will never attempt to sleep with him. Enter Lennon. So she does decide to take on this position to pretty much babysit Phoenix, right? And obviously it's because they pay extremely well, but she does have this ulterior motive of trying to get revenge on him for what he did to her in the past. So their relationship was not simple at all. There was a lot of push and pull moments, but this book was extremely fun to read. It was very spicy at times as well, and I really enjoyed it. I did end up rating this one 4 stars. The next book I read is called Dear Ava by Ilsa Madden-Mills, and this book obviously follows Ava, our main heroine. At the beginning of the book, we find out that Ava was actually sexually assaulted and left in the woods. She was attending this party, right, and she knows that she was drinking and everything, but she doesn't recall much after that. She just knows that the person who assaulted her is part of the football team at her school. Several months later, after the traumatic event, Ava decides to come back to school, right? And she wants to find out who this person is and pretty much get justice for herself. On the first day of school, as she is opening up her locker, she finds this letter in it, right? This person pretty much confesses that he is in love with her and he will help her find out who the rapist is. All Ava knows is that this mystery person is part of the football team as well, right? So she's just like, you could literally be anybody. We as the reader know who this person is, right? And so that is our hero, Knox. So I'm going to leave it at that. And this book was actually very interesting. Like, I've never really followed a scenario like this before, right? And so I was very intrigued by it, and I actually did enjoy it a lot. However, I felt like this book was very predictable, right? Like, I knew from the beginning who this person was, and I already had my defenses up about this person. And so when they did the final reveal, it wasn't like much of a surprise to me. I did really like how it ended though. Like, the ending epilogue or ending chapters were very cute. So I ended up rating this book 3 stars. The next book I read is called A Mr. Romance by Leisa Rayven. In this book, we're following Eden, and she is this journalist who is struggling in her career. So pretty much she's struggling to publish an article that would be a top hit, right? And so one day she hears about this guy called Mr. Romance, and he's supposedly this escort who doesn't necessarily sleep sleep with his clients, but he shows them how romance is done. Eden doesn't believe in romance, she doesn't believe in love or anything, and so she thinks that this guy is just trying to steal rich people's money. So she's trying to meet up with this guy and pretend to be a client, right, so that she can expose his ways. So this Mr. Romance guy is called Max, okay, so he does have a name, and he meets Eden and sets up this deal with her, right? He's just like, after 3 dates, if you don't fall in love with me, then I will allow you to publish the article. But if you end up falling in love with me, then you cannot publish anything about me at all. And so Eden's just like, you can't faze me at all. Like, I will not fall in love with nobody. I don't believe in love. And so we do follow the relationship from there. This romance was very, very cute. Like, I liked it all the way up until like the 50% mark. And that's kind of where I kind of got bored, and I was just like, okay, things are getting a little bit repetitive. So I was very invested in the story up until that 50% mark, right? But regardless, I did enjoy this story a lot. I ended up rating this one 3 stars. Alright, so on to the last book. This book is called Run, Posy, Run by Kate C. Wells. And this is definitely a dark romance. It's a mafia romance as well. In this book, we are following Posy and Dario, and at the beginning of this book, they are together, right? Dario is this very strong mafia man who has a lot of influence in the mafia world, right? And we find out that he's actually, I believe, a sociopath, or he's a psychopath, where he doesn't have a lot of feelings or emotions, and he's just kind of ruthless. At the beginning of the book, Dario is sent this sex tape, right? And in the sex tape is Posy. He immediately thinks that Posy had cheated on him and pretty much betrayed him, right? When he sees this tape, he is absolutely furious, right? And he's not thinking things through. So pretty much he just kicks Posy out of his house, and he's just like, you better run as far away as possible, because if I find you, you are dead. And they are like mafia men or whatever, so if they do kill somebody, they can cover it up really quick. And eventually Dario does figure out that he made a huge mistake, because this video was actually an old video and people had just edited the date on there to make it seem like it was really recent, right? So that was pretty much the setup of the story, and this book I ended up reading 2 stars, right? I actually really enjoyed it, but I was kind of over the whole like possessive alpha male type of mafia men, right? Like, he was just pretty much like, you are mine, you belong to me, and nobody can touch you, but also acting like a total douchebag. Alright, so those were all of the books I've read this month. I do think that this was a pretty fair reading month. It wasn't my best. I had a lot of times where I was just like, I don't want to read anymore, I don't want to listen to any more audiobooks, and nothing really stood out to me as much as I wanted them to, right? If you have also read any of these books, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, definitely check out my other videos as well, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.